Hi everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps.
Today I'm going to show you how to sew a whip stitch seam through the wrong side loops only on crochet. Some people refer to this as whip stitching in back loops only, but that's not always accurate depending on how you hold your fabric. The terms front loop and back loop are dependent on which side of the fabric is facing you, but the terms right side and wrong side are not. So it's more accurate to say seaming through the wrong side loops, and I'll talk more about this at the end of the video. Let's look at our fabric. Most crochet stitches have this V shape at the top. Each V has two loops. This one is closest to the right side of the fabric here, so this is the right side loop. This one is closest to the wrong side of the fabric, so this is the wrong side loop. Start by attaching yarn to one of your pieces, close to the corner where you want to start your seam. I've done that here just by weaving in the end right along here. Now normally you would use a yarn that's similar to the colors that you're using, but I'm using a different yarn so that you can see it clearly in the seam. Now hold your two pieces with right sides together. Notice that the right side loops are on the inside and the wrong side loops are on the outside. You may have a chain space in the corner, and it can be a little tricky to get the right loops on your chains, so if you prefer, you can work directly into the chain space just for the first stitch, just like that. But I'm going to go ahead and find the loops and use the wrong side loops even on my chain. So I'm going to start with the chains. Here's the wrong side loop of this chain, and here is the wrong side loop of the other chain on the other piece. So I'm going to put my needle through both of those. So this piece first and then this piece. And that is the first stitch right there. Pull all that yarn through. And then I'm going to move on to the next stitch. So going in the same direction from the piece closest to me to the piece farthest away, I'm going to go into the next stitch. Okay, again, wrong side loop on this stitch, wrong side loop on this stitch, and I'm going to pull my yarn through. Now notice that that brings the yarn up and over the edge of your fabric, creating a diagonal line. That's what makes it a whip stitch. Now if you had started going this way, you totally can go that way. It doesn't matter that I'm going front to back. What matters is that I'm doing it the same way every time. So if you had started this way, you would want to do every stitch this way. But since I started this way, I am going to go this way on every stitch from front to back. And I'm just going to keep doing this all the way across, finding just that one single back loop. If you have more stitches on one piece of fabric and fewer on the other, you can adjust by working into the same stitch twice. See how I've already worked into that one? I could work into that one and go into the next stitch on the back piece if I needed to adjust the number of stitches. I have the same number of stitches on both pieces, so I'm just going to keep going stitch by stitch here. I worked all the way across the edge and I pulled my stitches quite tight because I want them nice and snug. When we open up the fabric, you can see that the unused right side loops have formed a decorative ridge on each side of the seam. Between them at the back, you can see these little diagonal lines, which are the actual whip stitches. Now, if I'd used a different yarn that was more similar in color, those would hardly even be noticeable. For an extra strong seam, you can actually go back over the seam in the other direction. So we started here and we went that way. If I go back this way, that's going to make the diagonal lines go in the opposite direction to where they're going now. And you can see that's going to make little X's on the back of the fabric. So going back that way made little X's instead of the diagonal lines. And when I open it up, you'll see those little X's in the middle. If you look really closely, you can sort of see the little X's that are formed. But again, if you're doing this in the same color, you'll never even notice that those are there, because once they're pulled snug, they sort of hide into the fabric. And that's how you whip stitch through wrong side loops. Now you do need to have these V-shapes at both edges to be able to do this. It's a great seam for anything worked in the round, like these granny squares, or anything that has a simple edging round, like if you put a round of single crochet around your work. It does not work for side edges of fabrics because they don't have the little V-shapes. It also won't work for some fancy stitches that don't have the V-shape at the top also. It can work on a bottom edge if you worked your first row into back bumps, because that leaves the V-shapes on the bottom edge too. You can even do it in knitting if your cast on and bind off edges have the same V-shapes. So as long as you have these little V-shapes with the two loops, you can work this seam. Now remember I said I would talk to you more about front loop and back loop versus wrong side and right side loops? Let's look at this stitch right here just for example. Okay, here's the front loop, this one right here, here's the back loop. The front loop is always the loop that's facing me, and the back loop is always the loop facing away from me. That does not change, okay? On this piece, since the right side is facing me, the front loop is also the right side loop, and the back loop is the wrong side loop. So yes, if I lay these two pieces flat, it is a seam between the back loops, because here are the front loops that are facing me and the back loops are the ones in the back. Okay, so that works, saying it's a whip stitch seam through the back loops, works if your fabric is flat. But if I pick the pieces up and hold them together like we've been doing in this tutorial, now look what happened to this front piece. I turned it over, right? The wrong side loop is now facing me because I'm looking at the wrong side of the fabric. So the wrong side loop is now the front loop. So if I'm holding it this way, I'm actually joining the front loop on the front piece to the back loop on the back piece. So front and back change depending on how you hold it, but wrong side and right side do not. So that's why I call this a whip stitch seam through the wrong side loops. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching.